Hi, and welcome to the Reiki from the Farm podcast, brought to you by me, Pam Allen-LeBlanc from Hidden Brook Farm. I am a scientist, a businesswoman, and a licensed Reiki master teacher with the International Center for Reiki Training. Each week in this podcast, you'll be entertained as you learn about a wide variety of relevant Reiki topics, helping you become a more knowledgeable and effective Reiki practitioner. We caution you, though, this podcast may also dramatically improve your life, and we are so happy that you're here.
So welcome everyone to this month's Reiki Share and this week's podcast. Tonight we have an interesting topic. We are going to be talking about Ayurveda and how healthcare Reiki made me find my way to it and to just balance and health and alignment. So before we begin, though, I always like to let you know what is coming up on the farm. And I have to tell you that I have something super exciting that I think I might have been waiting all my life for. In February, we are going to be bringing 6 students with us to Kenya. And of course, we will be teaching some students in Kenya as well. It's February 19th to the 28th, 9 days. And if any of you are interested, I'm going to be teaching a Reiki level 1 and 2 class there, as well as an animal Reiki level 1 and 2 class. But we also have several other things that we're going to be doing. We are going to be visiting the Giraffe Manor Center and Langata Links. We're going to be going to the Sheldrick Elephant Orphanage, Nairobi National Park. And then we're going to take a couple of days and go over to Navesha Nanuki Game Park for an additional animal experience. And I don't know about you, but the animals of Africa have always fascinated me, and yet I don't know them as well at all as the animals here in North America, and I'd love to get to know them better. And also, Africa has the distinction of being the cradle of civilization. So I've always wanted to go, but it's something that it can be a little difficult to arrange a trip. We've been invited by my friend and student, Christy Carlson. Christy lives in Kenya. They have two coffee plantations, I believe, there. And she's going to help us organize everything so that you just have to look after the flight and a couple of the meals while you're there. Everything else will be looked after for you. So if you are like me and you've always wanted to visit Africa, then join us for an information session Monday, October 13th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And I'll tell you what, I will record that. I realize it's a weekday. And so not everybody is probably going to be able to get there. So I will record it and I will also put it out as a podcast. So I am going to look in our newsletter this weekend. There will be a link to sign up to join us for the October 13th Zoom session with Christy. And we'll have a lot more details then. And you can ask any questions that you'd like. Even if you're just thinking about it, we'll also be ending with a beautiful experience that actually connects us with the continent, with the animals there. And so I'd love to have you join us. So that's super exciting. Also exciting at the farm, online and in person. I've got some Reiki classes coming up this week. October 20th to 23rd. Actually, I have an online evening class, October 25th to 26th, online and in person, Animal Reiki 1 and 2. And then that's followed by the 27th to 30th of October, an online Animal Reiki Masterclass. We're going to be talking a little bit about healthcare Reiki this evening because it's rocking my world and it's rocking the world of a couple of the folks who are here with us live, who've had an opportunity to take the course. The next class, and it is on my website this time, so you will find it there. The next class is over 4 evenings again, November 15th and 16th and 22nd to 23rd. And that will be followed by a weekend class in the Eastern time zone, February 7th and 8th. So we do have some more healthcare Reiki. I very seldom teach Karuna Reiki, but if some of you want to take the masters to the next level, Karuna does that. And I have a class November 17th to the 20th, which is in the evening. So it works for Asia and Australia. I also am super excited to tell you that after a long hiatus and just being in the winter season this past summer after losing my horses, the animal communication book finally is punching out again, and I've started writing, and I'm just really, I've only been writing for a few days at this point, but I'm really excited by what's coming through and how quickly it's coming. So it's my intention to try to have the animal communication for Reiki practitioners book ready for you in time for Christmas, if not a bit before. In November, the 22nd and 23rd, we have an animal communication level 1 and 2 class. It's a weekend class online. The 24th and 25th online over 2 evenings is the professional practitioner class for animal communication. And you can take them back to back if you wish. And you can also, any of the classes, including the African class, you guys, classes, if you have already taken a class with me, you're always welcome to review them at 50% fee as long as there's room in the class. And then we have an animal communication master class. The date of this class did change. I realized that it was in conflict with the American Thanksgiving. So it's now December 1st to 3rd online in the evenings. Next September, I'll be teaching in Hong Kong. And this winter, look for a Reiki mentoring course with the Reiki Business Book. And this is a course that masters can teach to their students as well. I'm going to set it up this way. Also, look for some additional marketing courses. Those were some of the courses my daughter and I offered in the past that people seem to benefit so much from. So, if marketing your Reiki business or any spiritual business is important to you, just keep an eye on our newsletter. There will be more details coming very soon. And in November, I start working, or maybe it's even this month, I do start working on my horse card deck. So super excited. Now, the topic for tonight is around Ayurveda. And I know that's a bit of a strange topic, especially because I'm not an expert in Ayurveda by any stretch. But what happened is that healthcare Reiki, we were just talking about it before I started recording with some of the students that are here live. And healthcare Reiki has been it it came in and showed us that yes, one of the reasons for taking healthcare Reiki might be to offer healthcare in nursing homes and with hospice and in massage therapy clinics and in veterinary offices. It's helpful for animals and just all of these different places and to family and friends as well. So that could be one reason for studying that. However, one of the main things that came through was that for the healthcare Reiki practitioner, simply moving ourselves into the frequency of health, it allows and helps others that are just in our vicinity, just from being in our vicinity, it allows them to entrain to their authentic health. And our authentic health is not disease, it's not illness, it's health. And so many of us who have studied Reiki, healthcare Reiki, are just finding that it's just like automatically and spontaneously made profound shifts in our lives. Like suddenly we're exercising and we're loving it, and we're eating healthier, and we're no longer anxious, and we don't find ourselves doom scrolling anymore. And just a whole lot of really interesting things like that have been coming to play. But it is also individual, and it shows up in an individual way for everyone who needs it. And so what showed up for me many have talked about it on the podcast, I guess, before, is that I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia in my 20s. And so inflammation, and I also have some arthritis. So these are autoimmune diseases. Autoimmune diseases are very common for empathic people. Many of us who get into Reiki, and especially those who get into animal Reiki and who love animals, tend to be empaths. Many, it's in fact pretty much 100% of the people that show up in my class are empaths. And Reiki really helped me learn to manage my empathy. And it really helped make the fibromyalgia, the inflammation, the issues with arthritis, it made it all bearable. But I just, after healthcare Reiki, I really looked at it and I thought, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia in my 20s. This has been more than 30 years now with inflammation in my body. And I realized that inflammation is just the cause of so many issues and so many negative things. And I thought, it's time to finally figure this out. And I did figure it out a few years ago with a really strict diet and an anti-inflammatory diet and stuff, but it wasn't totally practical to just continually have to eat that way. And so for me, I am aware that the inflammation is related to diet. And I just said, you know what? I want to figure this out. And that's all healthcare Reiki needed was for me to form an intention. I want to figure this inflammation out. I'm tired of always being sore in my body. And yes, I'm much less sore than I used to be, but I'm still sore every single minute of every day. And so I decided that I was going to look for some answers. So what showed up was Ayurveda. Now, I'd like to talk to you about just how Reiki, and you don't have to have healthcare Reiki for this, every form of Reiki is always going to move to bring you into balance and alignment. And what showed up was Ayurveda, just simple shifts for deep healing. And I was absolutely shocked at how Reiki and Ayurveda wove together for me and how quickly the inflammation dissipated, how quickly my digestion, for the first time in my life that I can remember, my digestion has become comfortable and just how very aligned I feel right now, body, mind, and spirit. So that's why I wanted to talk with you about this topic today. And it's been coming through as we've been listening. Healthcare Reiki is a new course that Tracy Sullivan and I have been working to develop. We've just been listening to the energy for the last couple of years, and we've been teaching the class. We've taught 3 classes now at the level 1 and 2 level, and we'll continue teaching it. One of the things that is showing up is just how very important alignment is and how that alignment changes everything. And so what showed up for me was the only thing really, I'm so aligned and not, look, I've still got a lot of work to do, just like everybody, but so many areas of my life were aligned, and what wasn't aligned and what decidedly wasn't aligned was my gut and my gut microbiome, and that was just causing these physical problems mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. I felt so good, but my physicality was just simply not matching how wonderful my spirit felt, how great my emotions felt, how great my mind felt. And this seemed to bring that about. And I know that many people with autoimmune struggles face digestive imbalance challenges and alignment challenges. So, even though I'm not an expert, I'd like to take you through this little journey I've been on for this month-long course that I've been taking and just let you know where it led to. So, before we go into it too much further, I always like to bring us into, or I often like to bring us into an invocation. So, I'm just going to invite you to bring your hands together in Gasho now and just activate your Reiki energy. And if there's a particular symbol that feels like it's calling to you now, Just imagine that it's between your hands and that the light of Reiki is flowing down from the highest heavens, up from the divine earth, to in front of your hands, and then it moves through your hands and into your heart, the gift of love. And I invite you to just think about any area of your life that feels out of alignment. And it may not be physical for you, it might be spiritual, it might be emotional, it might be mental, it might have to do with relationships, with work, with your home life. There's so many options, but what stands out to you in this moment in time as something that feels a bit out of balance for you? And as you get this into your mind, simply form an intention now to invite Reiki to surrender this imbalance to Reiki, and invite Reiki to take care of you, for you, and to show you the way forward, the way, if there's anything you might need to do to support Reiki. One time I was looking into a physical therapy, a PRP treatment for my knees. When I shared with Colleen that maybe with Reiki I could bring in the same frequency, and she shared that sometimes, Pam, Reiki brings us to what we need. So I went and got the therapy, and it had a profound impact on the health and well-being of my right knee that had been bothering me and causing problems since I was 14. So just being open to using Reiki, but also following the guidance of Reiki. And I'd like to make you all aware of a new prayer that William Rand has brought in. Many of you know that for years he used the prayer, "Guide me and heal me, so I may be of greater service to myself and others." But recently, he's been guided to change that prayer. And it's now, "Empower me and guide me to fully express my authentic self on earth." And so we end our invocation today with that prayer, "Empower me and guide me to fully express my authentic self on earth." And our authentic selves are whole and healed and aligned. And so we invite the energy of Reiki, whatever form of Reiki that you practice, whatever symbols, to join you here today, empowering your intentions and this goal. Thank you. And so it is. Namaste. So I invite you to come back in your own time. So if we look at Reiki and balance, Reiki can often help show us, many times the imbalances are under our level of awareness. So in other words, they may exist in our body, mind, soul, or spirit, but we may not even be conscious of them. And whether we're conscious of them or not, Reiki will often uncover this for us. It will often show us where we are not in a place of balance. And Reiki is always there to help us move back into balance. In fact, if there is a place of imbalance that you're aware of, you can actually surrender it to Reiki and ask Reiki to take care of it for you. But sometimes, as Colleen mentioned, we also need to play a part. There also might be a role for us. So just being aware and being open to the guidance that you receive from Reiki for what is your part in this. And just understanding that energy being aligned is one of the foundations of healing. So, as I was reflecting on, okay, I'm finished with inflammation. It's been more than 30 years, and nobody has really been able to help me figure this out except with a really strict diet. But there must be another way. And Reiki just really clearly showed me that I was to do some courses. And I had enjoyed myself at Rebecca Campbell's course at Omega Institute so much. I said, okay, am I supposed to do Rebecca's courses? And I heard no. And am I supposed to do one of Colleen's courses? And I heard no, that's not what you need right now. And so I kept inquiring, okay, then what am I supposed to do? And I was supposed to look at the list of courses that Omega was offering and also the courses that Kripalu was offering. And one of the courses really stood out to me. I am signed up for a writing course with Omega coming up in next weekend or the weekend after next, but also a course showed up that Kripalu was offering on Ayurveda. And I'll be honest, Ayurveda is not, I've heard of it, but I didn't really know what it was. And yet that was the course. It just, for me, it shows up like almost like it's in bold letters if it's something that is trying to catch my attention. And her course showed up in bold letters. And I was like, I wonder what this is. And as I looked into it, I discovered that the person offering the course, Sarah Jean Rudman, she is a faculty member at Kripalu. But in addition to being an Ayurvedic practitioner and teacher, she's a clinical nutritionist. She teaches yoga, she's a life coach, she's a fitness instructor. So she really integrates Eastern and Western approaches and to health and to teaching that restore balance through Ayurveda, yoga, nutrition, and mindful living. And I thought, oh, this is somebody. I knew that for my brain, I was going to need somebody who had a very scientific approach. And she does. She did. She's actually working on her PhD right now in this work. And yet the course was around Ayurveda. And she kept bringing in where the Ayurveda, this tradition that's been around for millennia, is now, only just now, being proven by science. And so she actually would bring some of the scientific studies each week, and it was really fascinating. She talks about some really simple things that each and every one of us can do, these principles of Ayurveda, things like aligning with the rhythms of nature, seasonal self-care, balancing our dosha, which everybody, you can do a quiz and find out what is your dosha. It's probably no surprise to those of you who understand Ayurveda that I'm Pitta Vata. Pitta is that lots of energy, get a lot of things done kind of personality. And so she does talk about there are three doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And I'll talk about those a little bit more in a few moments. And so you figure out what you are. And so therefore, when you have an imbalance, you can identify it a little bit easier and you can see what to do about it. She talked about mindful eating, lifestyle habits that support digestion. She talked about immunity and emotional balance. And so it was just absolutely fascinating. And I just wanted to share a few tidbits from it tonight and just invite you. We're going to go into a meditation afterward to see if any of those things would be helpful to you, or if there's something else that would be helpful to you in your health. And we are going to bring in a combination of the healthcare Reiki and Ayurveda that has made such a profound difference for me. So basically, what is Ayurveda? Some of you may know more about this than I do. It's the science of life. That's basically the definition. That's what it means. And it's about aligning with nature's rhythms. And personally, I just really wanted to get rid of the inflammation. This was bold. I didn't really see how that was going to work. And when I tried looking it up on my own to just learn a little bit before the course, it didn't really align with me. And I was like, okay, but this seems complicated. So I just absolutely loved how Sarah Jean was able to show us that even just tiny practices begin to change things. So just a little bit about it. As I said, it's literally Ayurveda translated as the science of life. It comes from Sanskrit, and its basis is Ayas, which is life, and Veda, which is knowledge. So the knowledge or science of life. It varies how old people believe it is, but some people believe its roots trace back 5,000 years. Other people say to 2000, over 2,500. It comes from India, where sages and seers or rishis developed this approach to health by observing nature, the seasons, the body, and the mind. So it's part of the Vedic tradition of India, and it's connected to the four sacred texts known as the Vedas. And I'm probably not going to read the Vedas, but it's just interesting to note. And the teachings emphasized living in harmony with our natural cycles and the rising and setting of the sun, the rhythm of the seasons, and the balance of the elements. And so, what Sarah Jean invited us to do was begin with looking at daily rhythms and then just expand out. And she invited us to be very gentle with ourselves, not try to do everything at once, just to choose one thing and spend a week integrating that one thing into our lives. And then if that was going and it worked for us, then take another thing and add it and see how that works. And so that was really interesting. And she also dove into a few things. So I mentioned the doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. She dove into the Agni, which is our digestive fire, and this is something that I'd never learned about or never heard of. And then the Ojas, which is our vital essence, and then the Dinacharya and Ritucharya, which is our daily and seasonal routines. So just as a little point of interest, Ayurveda actually influenced traditional Chinese medicine. It introduced Tibetan medicine. And for those of us connected with the ICRT was connected with Tibetan shamanism or the Reiki that we used to learn, or that I first learned, was an Usui Tibetan Reiki lineage. And so Tibet is a connection. And also Ayurveda influenced Greek medicine through the trade routes and cultural exchange. So it has remained the main healthcare system in India for thousands of years. It's practiced in villages and royal courts all over. With the colonization of India in the 19th century, it was suppressed in favor of Western medicine, but it did survive through the community healers and households. And recently, there's been a modern revival in the 20th century, a renaissance, if you want, in India, where it's supported by both traditional practitioners and modern integrative health movements. And however, a lot of the information that Sarah Jean was sharing were actually American studies and North American studies that were proving, some international, but a lot of North American studies that were proving many of the concepts of Ayurveda. And so currently, the Indian government officially recognizes it as a medical system with dedicated universities and hospitals globally. It's practiced more in a complementary way, as a complementary wellness system, especially around nutrition, digestion, stress reduction, and aligning lifestyle with natural rhythms. So if that's of interest to any of you, I do invite you to dive in or dig in and check it out. So it does tend to be not so much, it is a medical system, but it's not just that. It's more of a way of living in balance with nature and in balance with the seasons and in balance with ourselves. And it has been tested and refined over thousands of years. So some of the things she talked about were, first of all, just prakriti and vikriti, which is understanding our dosha and then understanding our imbalances. And if that's something that you're interested in, I'll pop a link into the podcast notes. But there is a company called Banyan Botanicals that she recommended. And I went on the website myself and I noticed they have a tremendous number of free resources that help you understand, starting with a quiz that helps you find out what your dosha is, and it walks you through where your imbalances could be. And obviously they would like to sell their oils, but I'm just really interested in reading through the tremendous amount of information. I'm just reading an article a day from them, but you can actually go into that and find out what your dosha is if it's not something that you know. But following that, she talked about dinacharya and ritucharya, which is aligning your daily routines and seasonal practices with nature's cycles to support balance and resilience. And the daily, she said, let's just start with daily. And we ended the month with seasonal. She said, let's just look at daily practices. And she talked about the fact that one of the reasons that our stomach gets upset or we feel ill when we travel is that our body really thrives on routines. And anything that throws us out of routine can have an impact on our health. And she talked about a couple of small things that we could do in our routine that would just make a huge difference. And she just recommended just doing one thing at a time. So the first thing she talked about was water first thing in the morning. And I thought, but I already drink tea in the morning and I drink a cup of coffee. Like felt that I was getting lots of liquid, but she was very clear. It doesn't have to have lemon or anything. Just drink a lukewarm glass of water first thing in the morning. And in fact, she recommended 20 ounces. She said, you're going to sleep better. You're going to be hydrated. You are going to be thirstier through the day. So I thought that's one thing. That was the first thing I decided to add to add. And so I went ahead and I started drinking just 2 glasses of water in the morning, first thing, before my coffee and tea. I can't tell you the difference that made just to my digestion, to I wound up drinking more water through the day because I noticed myself thirstier better. My sleep was impacted. I it was such a simple thing, and it made such a huge difference. The next thing I wound up integrating was tongue scraping and using the neti pot. And calls that cleansing the sense organs. And I always thought tongue scraping had something to do with releasing toxins or something like that. And she said, no, it's to stimulate your digestion. And so as you do this, this starts to fire up your agni or your digestive fire so that when you eat breakfast, you'll be prepared and ready to digest it. So that's something that was really easy to do. And so I went ahead and added that, and I went out and bought a neti pot and I added that. And I decided to add the both of them that week. And I cannot believe the difference in my breathing with just doing that. Simple, added that to my routine every morning. Obviously, the first few times I did it, it seemed to take a bit of time. But after about a week, it was like just effortless and it just became part of the routine. And I just loved it. Another thing she recommended was skin brushing. And that's something I'd been sporadic with on and off. And so I already had the brush and everything, and then just using strokes of sesame oil or coconut oil to moisturize your skin after you do the skin brushing, and that just stimulates the lymphatic system. And so on the week 3, I added that. And she also recommends movement, and the movement I was already doing. But I just couldn't believe the difference that doing those simple things, what they did. The next thing she talked about was the digestive fire, the agni, and mindful eating rituals, and just the importance of strengthening our digestion and creating small rituals around eating. She also talked about just how important the timing was, the quality of our food, the attention to the presence. And I have to admit that in so many areas, like I take the time to do a lot of things, food is an area that it's fuel for me. I don't think very much. I usually eat quickly as I'm doing something else. And pausing a little bit and being a bit more mindful, I think that also made a huge difference. And she was very specific around the meals that it's important to have a medium-sized breakfast, a larger lunch, because that's when our digestive fire is the strongest, and the smallest meal being supper, because that's when our digestive fire is the weakest, and no eating 3 hours before bed. Now, I don't always do that, but I have moved toward that pattern, that rhythm. And I literally, I've been telling my husband almost every day since the course started, oh my gosh, I don't have any inflammation today. I can't believe how good I feel. And so that's been really positive. After this, she moved into talking about strength, looking at the positive, not focusing on what's wrong, but instead focusing on your strength, that wisdom that your body has, and trying to reclaim your health without any shame or without rigid rules, and just the importance of, even though these are guidelines, not being too hard on yourself, being kind to yourself. She brought in, she really wove the scientific insight into it, especially around gut health and nutrition, and which was really interesting. And then she talked about the importance of just these small daily rituals, like the warm water in the morning, walking after your meals, making sure that your workspace is soothing, using aromatherapy and color therapy as just tools to help within your day. And without even intentionally thinking about it, I just noticed that I was more aware of all of these things. And then finally, she actually talked about some of the recipes that she had. And I'm going to put a few of the recipes in the chat. One in particular around turmeric milk, which is just 2 cups of milk or plant-based milk, a teaspoon of turmeric, a half teaspoon of cinnamon, a quarter of teaspoon of ginger, and a sprinkle of black pepper and a little bit of honey after heating it. And I'll be honest, I haven't tried this yet, but I'm about to. But the other thing that showed up just as I started becoming a little bit more mindful around the food, around these practices, I've always wanted to try sourdough baking. And the next thing you know, I had a pot of sourdough on the counter. And if anybody else is interested in sourdough, it's so simple, but I can put a few recipes in the podcast notes and in the chat. And I just started, you just put a cup of water and a cup of, I'm using gluten-free flour, but a cup of water and a cup of whatever flour that you normally use. And you just allow it to ferment for a few days. And then you start using that in recipes, and you, in the place of like yeast, and in biscuits and in breads and muffins and pancakes and waffles. And gosh, I've been experimenting with a lot of different things. And the sourdough just really connected with my constitution and really helped me to feel so much better. A couple of the things just to, oh, and just the meditation in motion, like that meditation doesn't always have to be still. And that's something that I've been thinking and practicing for quite a while, that walking or any outdoor activity can be meditative. It can be a way to integrate the body, mind, and spirit. And so just going through or reviewing the morning routine was just, and seeing if any of this makes sense or would apply to you. One thing was drinking water immediately on waking up, and then doing the neti pot and tongue scraping, skin brushing and moisturizing. And another thing she talked about with daily routines is the importance of waking and sleeping with the sun. And so they're looking at waking around 6:30 in the morning and sleeping around 9, and that's much earlier than I ever have gone to sleep, and I still am not really sleeping that early, but I am sleeping earlier than I used to and am working toward that. And one of the things in the Pitta dosha is that we do tend, because we can get by with less sleep, we think we're fine. And yet we actually often need more sleep. And if we gave ourselves more sleep, it would be helpful. And then again, that eating with the digestive fire, the medium meal at breakfast, the largest at lunch, the smallest at supper. And with the meals, she talked about something I found interesting. First of all, if you are having trouble with your digestion, journaling with the following question: what are you having difficulty digesting? Because if you're having trouble digesting food, there's probably an emotion or something happening in your life that you're having trouble digesting. And so as I journaled with that question, it showed up just what I was struggling with and where I needed. And what we have Reiki. So once you realize what you're having difficulty digesting, I was able to send some Reiki to that and really allow it to release. And so I think that also helped improve my digestion. And then she recommended keeping a food journal. And I'm no stranger to food journals. I think I've been on every kind of diet that exists or pretty close. And I've counted calories. I haven't counted macros. I will say that. I've counted carbs. I've done all kinds of things. What she was talking about was very different, though, with the food journal. She said with the food journal, she wanted us to recognize that there are 7 kinds of hunger. And there's eye hunger, which is when food looks appealing and your eyes want it. There's nose hunger, when something really smells good and it makes your appetite, it might even cause your stomach to growl, but it picks up your appetite when we smell something that smells amazing. There's mouth hunger. Sometimes we crave textures or tastes. There's stomach hunger, which is actual physical emptiness. There's cellular hunger, which is when your body craves nutrients. There's mind hunger. This is around beliefs or rules around food. And then there's heart hunger, when we have an emotional desire for comfort food. And so with our food journal, she simply invited us to write down what we ate, how we felt after we ate it, how did it make us feel, and what type of hunger were we eating from? And I was absolutely shocked that I was very seldom eating from stomach hunger. It was almost always the 6 other hungers that were showing up, and sometimes even just boredom, emotional hunger, which isn't that, I guess, that heart hunger, that emotional desire for comfort and love. Like I maybe had a difficult task to tackle and I didn't want to tackle it, so I'd go get a snack. And she talked about the fact that so often in our culture, we almost never get to stomach hunger. And so by being a little bit more aware of that and being aware of not eating 3 hours before bed, I just, again, I cannot get over the inflammation leaving so almost completely, and just how my digestion is working. So those were some of the things that I wanted to talk with you about today, and just some thinking about what are some of the simple rituals you might like to add to your life. And because I'm aware that so many of us who are sensitive souls struggle with autoimmune disease or gut health. And I just can't believe how these small, consistent shifts made such a huge difference. Now, tonight, I didn't have much at all for supper and I want a snack, but I've actually made myself some cashew milk and I'm going to make some turmeric milk this evening for my husband and I. So I think that's going to be lovely. I also want to talk about just how Reiki and can help support our intuition to recognize our imbalance, that Ayurveda may be a practical solution for you to help restore alignment, or there might be another practical solution. But whatever it is, that's what our meditation is going to bring together for us tonight. And that when we can put both of these together, there is a lot of harmony and empowerment and wholeness that comes from it. In closing, and just before we go into our meditation today, I just invite everybody to think about what's one small change that you might like to try this week. Is there anything at all from what I spoke about, what I learned around Ayurveda that is speaking to you? And also just ask Reiki to empower you and guide you so that to fully express your authentic self on earth, because our authentic self is healthy. And that's one thing that healthcare Reiki showed us, is that it's when we become misaligned from our authentic selves that we move out of a state of health. And that's been so interesting. I see a question in the chat. Oh, thank you, Roxlana. I'm glad that you find it interesting. And Wanda, you were just asking if I do the dry brushing every day. Almost every day. I have to admit that, like, occasionally there's a day when I'm a little more pressed for time. And when I am pressed for time, I seem to do all the other rituals, but the dry brushing might get set aside for the next day. But yeah, I do. And it does seem to be your skin, our skin is our largest organ. And any imbalances are often going to show up in the skin. And that's actually, you're welcome, Wanda. I worked with a few animals today that imbalances were showing up in the skin. And the dry brushing just really is lovely for that and helps support that. And I'm just wondering if anybody else has any questions today before we move into our meditation to see what your body needs. When I drink water in the morning, is it supposed to be warm? Yeah, it is. Not ice cold, but I have to admit that I like cool water better. So I don't drink warm water. There's no ice cubes in it or anything. So I drink kind of cooler water from the tap is what I'm drinking. So it's not heated or anything like that. It's just not ice cold. And that seems to be working really well with my constitution. And it can be, yeah, room temperature, sort of something like that. And I have to admit that I'm drinking it a little cooler than room temperature because I like it better that way. But with the filter that I use at home, it is more room temperature. So I will absolutely post the golden milk recipe. And I'll tell you what, if you would like to check the podcast, I found a really wonderful sourdough biscuit recipe that is amazing. And so I don't have that recipe here, but I did prepare the turmeric milk recipe so that maybe we'll all drink it this evening together. And I will put the recipe for the sourdough biscuits in the podcast notes. I do the tongue scraping when I brush my teeth, which is usually before I drink the water. Yeah, but I think if you mixed those two things up, and did it in the other order, it would be fine. And that's one of the things Sarah Jean was really key on or talking about, was just the importance of doing what works best for you. A special brush. For skin brushing, I tried to look up because she talked about a silk brush, and I went to a couple of health food stores and I even looked online and I could not find a silk brush. So I actually just have a brush with natural bristles, and it's not too soft, not too hard. It's like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. It's right in the middle. It's nice. And anything I looked up was just for skin brushing was a natural bristled brush. And it's something like I said, I've had it for years. I've done skin brushing like sporadically here and there, but it does seem to make such a nice difference when you do it daily or almost every day. So I have been enjoying doing that. And yeah, it feels really good. the turmeric milk, and you would like the sourdough info and you're gluten sensitive. I will say, Susan, that I'd heard that sourdough, even with wheat, is usually okay for most people, but I'm more sensitive than that. And I have to do gluten-free sourdough even still. I have tried sourdough with gluten, so try it both ways and see what you think, because definitely I miss eating actual crusty, wonderful bread. I miss it. But the biscuits have come pretty darn close. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the first gluten-free thing that I've eaten that is doughy in the middle and crunchy on the outside and just so good because I so miss crusty bread and I miss croissants and croissants I think and that's one of the things that Sarah Jean, that's one of the main things too, and I forgot to mention that, was just bringing back the joy of eating because I have developed so many rules for myself as I've been trying to figure out this digestion, and it was just so complicated. And going to a restaurant with me is ridiculous because there's like sometimes one thing on the menu that I'm capable of eating that is not going to put me in pain the next day. And so I'm just loving feeling really good like this. I'm loving having a little bit more freedom. But one of the things she had us do was think about just close our eyes and do a little exercise. What is your favorite food? What do you love? And it's croissants for me, like bar none. And I haven't made it to croissants yet, but I these biscuits are not bad. They're pretty close. Jyoti's asking about using a loofah. You could absolutely use a loofah. And the other thing, she said you could even just use a washcloth to do skin brushing, like just a dry washcloth if you don't have a skin brush. And that's just enough, just a little bit of roughness, just rubbing it quickly over the whole body. And so you can look up online skin brushing rituals, and there are some that take 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and don't nobody have time for that. So she was really clear on, she has two young children, so she was really clear on making it work for you. So yeah, you could totally use a loofah or just a dry face cloth. And Susan says she misses crusty bread too. There's a lot to miss. And there's a question just about what turmeric milk does. So turmeric is anti-inflammatory, especially, and it just does have so many properties for our health. So you may have heard of golden milk, but yes, it's the anti-inflammatory nature of turmeric and just so many health benefits. And when you put a little black pepper with turmeric, it really helps the body to absorb that. Oh, thank you, Wanda. I'm glad that you've enjoyed this because I'm glowing. I just can't get over finally. My gut feels good after all of this trying to figure it out. Finally, there was a simple solution that existed all along. I'm really happy that Reiki and healthcare Reiki took me through it. So, thank you for all of your awesome questions, everybody. I hope I answered as many of them as possible. But just thinking about that croissant, I gave myself permission. That's where the sourdough bread came in. I thought, that's what I miss. Like, I miss a croissant. That's something that I absolutely loved. And Reiki showed me, well, make sourdough bread. And I've had it on my list of things to do. So, and GOT, you're wondering if I use an alternative milk like almond milk. Absolutely, you can. But I have to admit, my husband and I have gotten even more, I don't know, thrifty recently. And we make plant-based milk from cashews. There's a couple of things actually with sourdough bread. I am just using some flours that I purchased because I'm in Campobello right now. But at home, my husband actually bought me when I was first came back from visiting William, and William makes this bread that he grinds the wheat and the rice in his Vitamix. And I was looking, but it was quite expensive to get the dry bowl for your Vitamix. And my husband got me just online a little 2-cup flour grinder, and it does it's stainless steel. It does an absolutely beautiful job. So I'm actually grinding my own, and then he mixes up a beautiful flour recipe for me with a combination of mung beans and millet. And I love it. It's been the closest to like real flour. Plus it's a higher protein content, but the closest to real flour that I've had. And so I had found some bread recipes that were palatable, but the energy said, you miss croissants, make your sourdough. And then it guided me to use ChatGPT to look up, hey, how could I make this? And what are some other things that I could make with sourdough? And so I've been on a crazy baking spree with my son just loves the banana chocolate chip muffins, and the only sugar is in the chocolate chips, the little mini chocolate chips. And when I made them with sourdough and the biscuits, I'm making those almost daily. They just keep getting better. So it's really fun. Let's go ahead and go into a guided meditation just to find the balance within that you need, whatever that looks like for you. So I'm just going to invite you to activate Reiki now and place your hands over your heart or wherever you feel guided. Taking a deep breath in and just letting it out slowly, releasing any tension or stress or busyness from your day, anything you need to think about later. And just take this moment to be about you and for you. Let your body settle just wherever you are, noticing the ground beneath you, the chair beneath you supporting you. And just allowing Reiki to flow, flowing into your body on your breath, surrounding you, just wrapping you in gentle, loving light. And just imagine the light of Reiki moving through your crown, down through your body, just scanning your body now for what it needs, scanning your mind, your spirit, your soul, your emotions. And just looking for what do you need to bring balance and alignment as we allow the energy to touch our mind, calm our thoughts, move into our heart, easing and releasing our emotions into our gut, our center of digestion and intuition, bringing us warmth and comfort and healing. And then being gentle with yourself, ask, where in my life might I be out of balance? It may be something different from what you saw before. That area may already be addressed, or there may be something that would be helpful to address in front of it. And just notice when you ask, where in my life am I out of balance? Notice that you get a simple, soft, gentle answer. This is coming from the body, not the mind. The mind will list 20 things. But your body has an incredible amount of wisdom and intelligence, and so we're tapping into that. Where am I out of balance? Where am I out of balance? Where am I out of balance? And with this in mind, I invite you to go into our second inquiry, which is, what am I finding hard to digest? Physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually? What am I finding hard to digest? And just breathing Reiki into whatever shows up. And then just invite Reiki in to bring alignment. And you might even ask yourself, where is Reiki guiding me to bring alignment, and how is Reiki guiding me to bring alignment? And just notice, just pay attention if there are any specific things, any specific guidance. Where and how are Reiki guiding me to bring alignment? Reiki may answer not with words, but with feelings, images, or a knowing. Just trust whatever comes, allowing the answer. We invite the wisdom of Reiki, of Ayurveda, or any other spiritual system that you feel aligned with or that is calling to you. We invite these spiritual systems to work together with Reiki and provide whatever healing that you need. You might imagine yourself drinking fresh water first thing in the morning, nourishing your body, helping your digestion, your sleep. You might imagine yourself rising with the sun, eating meals that honor your body's rhythms, medium, larger, and the smallest at night. Imagine yourself moving through your day with flow and grace and presence, mindfulness, attention. Using the distance symbol, imagine that you've implemented the guidance you've received. Go forward to your future self and notice how light and balanced your body can feel, how peaceful your mind becomes. I invite you to allow Reiki and Ayurveda or any other tradition that you're guided to intertwine. Just reminding you that healing doesn't have to be complicated. Small, loving choices create big shifts. Let's rest here together for a moment, just breathing Reiki into your body, your heart, your gut, and your spirit. And just allowing the healing energy and the guidance that comes through to empower you to do. We'll end today with William's prayer, empower me and guide me to fully express my authentic self on earth. And my authentic self is vibrant, healthy, joyful, loving, aware. Whenever you feel ready, I invite you to bring your awareness back to this moment, opening your eyes, bringing that feeling, that sense of balance and alignment with you into the rest of your evening, and bringing it with you into your day tomorrow. Thank you so much for being here with me this evening. Whether you're here live or whether you're listening to the podcast after, I just want you to know how much I appreciate you, care about you. Thank you for the light that you are in the world. Nobody's told you. I want you to know that you're making a huge difference. So thank you. And it's in the small things that we make the biggest difference. Take care, everyone. Until next time. Thank you so much for being with me, for all that you do. Namaste.